Today, we're looking at Colorverse Gravity Wave. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Colorverse Gravity Wave is a turquoise ink. And to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples, I put the ink into a different pen for a day, I then put it into a D-like alpha with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. Now before we go to the writing samples, let's look at the sciencey bits. Up first is a chromatography, and I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see is this very light gray across the bottom, and then a very light blue and a nice dark turquoise color at the top. It's interesting as a blend. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. Now that gray line that was on the bottom is much more there, much more permanent and in place. We don't really see much of the, we see the blue push up very lightly, we see white in the center, but then we get to see that really turquoise green or turquoise blue. It's one of those weird colors that goes kind of, but we see that turquoise nice and dark across the top. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I get a little weary looking at what's going on with that H, with how much is pushing out. However, it is very clear and readable, so it should be very safe to use in that note-taking situation. Water is reactivating and completely lifting this off. That was only 30 seconds, and we're easily seeing the dots from the Rhodia dot pad left behind. I really do think that given a little bit more time, water is all that it's going to take to get this out of your pen. Pen flush strangely does less than what water did. So I don't know what's going on there. Now 1/3 bleach solution, although it's not needed, it does completely obliterate this out of your pen. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Colorverse Gravity Wave has a viscosity of 2.3, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done with the extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. For the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Colorverse Gravity Wave has an average dry time of 16 seconds, making it normal. Now, let's look at the writing samples. I picked this ink up in sample form, and to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. I think my light just flickered. Let's take a look at the Clairefontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather, spread, halo, sheen. It offers really cool shading, and it has a neat tone. This is nice. This is nice. I don't run to turquoise ink. This is nice. So nice. It's really, really nice tone. It gives great shading as a result of that tone. The LOR is super dark compared to the V. The E gets darker. Beautiful. Beautiful. I wish this wasn't so expensive to get a hold of. Extra fine, no feather, spread, halo, sheen. Beautiful shading. And a great, totally different tone than we got with the 1.1. Totally different tone. Nice. Just, wow. Look at the H, how much darker it is than the T or the E. The K gets super dark. The LAZ is dark and the Y gets lighter again. Just really stand out. Beautiful. 11 seconds to dry. The medium, because it's much wetter going down, it had no feather, spread, halo, sheen. It had no shading here. It took 15 seconds to dry. Noticeably darker tone than we got with the with the extra fine. We have 3 different tones here. Beautiful.
The scrubby for the extra fine shows us a little bit of color variation. We got way more in the writing. The medium shows us none. We got none. The smear test says you could likely recover it, and I believe it. Tomoe River. No bleeding. We get ghosting. The 1.1. Beautiful tone. Beautiful. Beautiful tone. This cream paper brought it, it made it just scream right there. As a tone, it's gorgeous on this paper. Now, it had no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. But the tone is fantastic. The extra fine, a darker tone, not my tone for a turquoise. No feather spread, halo, sheen, or shade, 16 seconds to dry. Very dark tone, like deep, deep water tone with the medium. Super deep water. I know it says gravity wave. I see water when I see turquoise. This is like you are at, about 110 feet underwater. Where a lot of those other tones have been sort of pulled out. That's what you get. Beautiful. It's a nice tone. I don't care for this tone. I love this tone. The medium, no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. 22 seconds to dry. The scrubby for the extra fine and the medium showed us no color variation. We didn't get any color variation. And the smear test, you probably could not recover it. So, Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 gives no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. And that beautiful tone again. The 1.1 had no other quality, but that tone is gorgeous. Extra fine, darker tone, no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. I take that back. It has shade. I'm sorry. It has a lot of shade. The U is darker than the I. C and the K gets darker, darker, darker. The over, the R is definitely darker than the rest of over. The A is the darkest part of lazy, so we get it quite a bit in the writing. I misspoke on the extra fine. 13 seconds to dry. The medium, noticeably darker tone. 110 feet underwater. No feather, spread, halo, sheen, and no shade with this one. 16 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby of the extra fine shows us some color variation. We did get some very nice color variation. The medium shows us none. We got none. Smear test, you could likely recover it. And being a great turquoise, what happens when you put that on some yellow paper? So yellow Tomoe River, of course we get no bleeding and no ghosting. We didn't expect it there because we didn't have it before. Look at that. That's gorgeous. I don't even know how to explain how great this color looks on yellow paper. Oh my goodness. And the extra fine got even better. The medium got better. This ink gets better on yellow paper. The 1.1, no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. I'm sorry there's no shading. I wish there was. There's not. But the extra fine, no feather, spread, halo, sheen. The shading pops out even more. There was some shading with the white. It pops here. It's standout, beautiful. L is very dark. A is very dark. Z is lighter. Y gets darker again. The G in dog, darker again. The E in the, very dark. The K in quick, very dark. The B in brown, very dark, getting lighter. Beautiful all over. Just wow. Nice. And where we haven't had anything on the mediums, sorry, the extra fine, 13 seconds to dry. We haven't had anything on the mediums. It's offered no shading, except now. The medium, no feather, spread, halo, sheen. We do get shading, ladies and gentlemen, with the medium. And it's nice. The Q starts very dark. It gets to lighter on the right side. The U starts getting darker. The CK, super dark. Over starts really light and gets darker all the way through the writing. The, very dark word. The is a dark word. It stands in the dark corner. Anyway, 16 seconds to dry. Extra fine and medium both show us some color variation. I think the color variation we got in the writing was way nicer than what we get in the scrubby. The smear test says you could likely recover it. So I went to Life paper. It's a nice laid paper. It's one of my favorite papers to use. No bleeding, no ghosting. Gorgeous 1.1 color. Just wow. No feather, spread, halo, sheen. We get shading on the Colorverse 1.1 in spots. The SE of Colorverse a little bit. The G of Gravity a little bit. So we get the beginnings of some shading here. Extra fine. Noticeably darker tone. No feather. No spread. No halo. No sheen. Great shading. H is way darker than the T or the E. Quick starts dark, gets light, gets dark again. Brown starts dark and gets light. Fox starts light and gets dark. The is way darker than lazy. We get all forms of shading here. Words that are darker than other words. Some words that are just much lighter. Some words that have shading throughout. Some that start light, get dark, get light. Just, wow, nice. 10 seconds to dry. Medium, no feather, spread, halo, sheen. Yes, we get the beginnings of shading in area. Quick has much darker on the left side, gets lighter on the right side of the Q, lighter into the U, darker into the ICK. Nice. Dry starts lighter and gets darker. Over starts lighter, gets dark quick, and stays dark. So we do get some shading here in the medium. Not tons, but what we get is nice, and I get to appreciate it. And 15 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows us plenty of color variation. You really have to look far left to far right to see it. The medium shows us not as much color variation, which is what we got in that writing sample. Now the smear test, you could probably recover it if you smeared while you were writing. So what does Franklin-Christoph paper think of this ink? Not too highly. Don't use this ink on Franklin-Christoph paper. It bleeds a lot. It spots all over the place, like you can see, to the point that if it had a lot of show-through or ghosting, it wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter to talk about this. Tons of bleed all over the place. It didn't touch the page underneath, but it makes the backside of the page unusable. The 1.1, this is a very nice tone. It's not like it was before, and that's the tone of the paper affecting the color as we see it. The 1.1 had no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. The extra fine is a noticeably darker tone. I think this is the nicest tone we get on this paper. It had no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. It took 5 seconds to dry. The medium, a noticeably darker tone again with no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. 7 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby shows us no color variation. We didn't get any, we didn't expect any, but the smear test says you could likely recover it, and that is what I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Colorverse Gravity Wave, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice green, and I went with Robert Oster's Lemon Grass. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I would ask, if you've enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. So what do I think of Colorverse Gravity Wave? I think it gives very nice shading, and the tone that you get can really be varied depending on what nib you choose to use. This is not a bad ink. Turquoise, for me, tends to be a little more difficult for me to find the ones I'm ultimately very happy with. It's a good ink, but not good for me. Thanks for watching.